Hello everyone, this is Jasmine, aka Gladiatorinsweats, and it has been quite a while. So I want to say hello to all of the returning members and welcome to all of those that are new here. As I said, my name is Jasmine, and what I do normally do here is provide collective messages or just show bits and parts of my mental process or really just the way that I'm thinking about things. And you'll see that usually labeled in my videos called Mercurial Musings. But yeah, really here I just like to shoot the wind, talk a lot about what's not just necessarily on my mind in general, but in a more spiritual context from a grander perspective, seeing the forest for the trees, if you will. So, I digress. I wanted to really get into the message. I just felt called to pull a message for the collective as I used to do, and I just really want to share this with you guys. So, as you can see, the card that we do have is the Four of Swords. In the tarot deck that I'm using, the Tarot of Transformation, this is labeled Stabilizing Mind. So I actually do want to go ahead and read the passage and add anything extra if there's anything that comes to me. Alright, so the passage says, this card is about creating stability in the mind. This can be achieved through various mental or spiritual practices, or through entering a protected space where you can withdraw and be alone. Taking a retreat from everyday life can give you time to get grounded and centered again. Since it is often difficult to get away for protracted periods, practices like meditation are used to create a retreat space in the midst of daily life. We stop doing and let the mind settle, sometimes coming to a profound sense of rest. We step out of mind spin when we stop following our thoughts, whether through discipline, the power of concentration, standing back and witnessing the mind, or by focusing on other aspects of presence. Some people focus on what has been called presence or being, an inner dimension of spirit. One way to feel this is by learning to sense the body and its interior space in a holistic way. Different teachings offer their own recipes for dropping below the chatter of mind and coming to know our own fundamental nature. In the image, a woman looks through a stained glass window in her sanctuary or retreat space, contemplating the pattern of fours found in the window. There's something innately stabilizing and balancing about fours. This is good, since she is looking for a way to create order from the emotional and mental chaos she has been feeling. One way to create order is to identify patterns in the swirling field. When you can identify a pattern in the mind, a pattern of thought or feeling, and see where it originates, you can get some distance from it and be more objective and less whipped around by it. Developing a witnessing mind helps you explore parts of your experience that would otherwise be overwhelming. Staying grounded in the moment through practices like watching the breath and sensing gives you a place to anchor as you let go of belief systems, identities, and various inner structures that have formed the mental and psychological scaffolding of your experience. This card is often an indicator that some kind of mental retreat is needed. It is helpful to step back and gain a fresh perspective. Perhaps you've been caught in a particular mental atmosphere without really noticing it. It could be an attitude of hopelessness or attachment to a particular outcome. Perhaps you've gotten caught in your story, the life script you keep playing out. Or it may simply be that your mind is wound up and needs to relax. If you don't have a meditation practice, this would be a good time to begin one. The Four is calling for stability and rest. So I really feel like the passage pretty succinctly put it, that this is really speaking about mental retreat, about mental stability, and this coming forth from a lot of different ways that they mention, which some of the ways that stand out for me that I found have been also very useful for myself, of taking the observer stance, of allowing yourself to not necessarily remove yourself from your current everyday experience, but more so taking that time to step aside sometimes from the narration that's taking place in your mind, or the mental chatter that happens when maybe something bothers you, or when something really affects you in a certain way. And I know I can speak from my own experience that when those things do happen, that narrator is right there ready to pick up whatever story has been created, or whatever belief is there that really, gets that story and gets those emotions going, which, essentially lead to a whole reaction. And really bringing some of my own personal experience into this, I really feel this very deeply about allowing ourselves to recognize the patterns in our life, of allowing ourselves to become more curious, maybe finding a space of wonder as opposed to seeing things always as another thing to happen to us, or another issue. I feel, particularly when we do frame it in this way, not only do we get to experience maybe a different set of emotions, as opposed to maybe victimhood, we can, as I mentioned, experience, curiosity, wonder, just having those thoughts of maybe, what if this is for me, or, what is it that could possibly be hidden here that I'm not seeing, that is for me, that really is here for my benefit. So, and again, that can be in a particular context, but I really do appreciate that they brought up the concept of really taking that time to step back from the thoughts, and not just that, but just the mental chatter in general. So yeah, I don't want to add too much more. I feel like the passage was very succinct, as I mentioned. So yeah, as it did mention though, I do want to just bring up some of the practices that it did mention again. Meditation, definitely very key. And I also just want to even preface this as meditation does not necessarily have to be something where you're sitting in a particular stance, where you've got to sit in a pose and you have to hold your hands a particular way, or any of those things. Although it has been proven useful for many people, and it does provide some sort of actual what's the word progress for some people. Other people, they find meditation in other ways, like spending time in nature, getting creative, journaling. There's so many different ways in which you can allow yourself to put space between the mental chatter and your true self, your true neutral nature. And so, as it mentioned, whatever that practice is for you, because there's so many paths, so many different recipes for ways we can get this going. And so just find the way that works for you, or that calls you, and give it a shot. Give it a really good shot, because I can assure you that, as it says, stabilizing our mind, stabilizing that part of us that tends to go haywire when things do shift, and when things do go outside of our way, or when things aren't going as expected, or just maybe when we're really in a transformative time in our life, at a crossroads where we're really having to delve deep. And this also requires a certain space to allow ourselves to dig deep, giving ourselves that mental space from everyone else. The term that came to mind, actually, while I was reading that passage, was pratyahara, of withdrawal, of allowing ourselves to maybe put some space between ourselves and the outer world, so that we can hear ourselves a little more. But as I said, I don't want to make this too long. So thank you so much for tuning in and for being here. This was a little bit rough, just getting back into the swing of making videos and creating content. So thank you so much for your presence, and for welcoming me and accepting me. So I am hopeful to be back again next week with another video, and coming out with some more content. So do stay tuned, and I hope you guys are all doing well. And last but not least, you can also follow me on Instagram at Gladiatorinsweats. I admittedly haven't been posting there at all either. As I mentioned, just having been in quite the swing of changes in my own personal life, but I am hoping to get back into posting and really not needing it to be super crafted. I do feel like, as I started my channel last year, I did feel very pulled to need to make my content look a certain way and to be professional, quote unquote. And I'm just sort of a little tired of that, in this notion of, am not a professional in any sense of being able to guide other people, but I am here to offer my own experience and offer my own perspective and reflection as, one of the drops of water in the grand ocean of people. So I just want to be able to put more content out that is authentic to me without really holding any expectations for how it is to be accepted or how it is to be received, if it's received at all. So again, I do want to thank you for accepting me and for being here, because I just appreciate the connection. So I digress. I just love talking to you guys. So I will be here hopefully next week, and until then, much love, and as always, many blessings.